Welcome to Nomad Media, Automotive Tales, where we tell vehicle stories, a little bit of history, and some unique and personal experiences. Let's get right into it. So for today we have Tim Wolshire and his 1959 Chevrolet Corvette. Man, this thing is a real beauty. And when I say beauty, I mean a gem. And it's personally my favorite Corvette. I've owned a C7 myself, a 2016 model. And you know, some people love the newer styles. Some people really love the old styles. But the C1 for me, I just love it. I absolutely love it. And if I was to have one of these, you even got it in the color combination I would want if I could at all make it work with budgets and things like that, since I have to kind of keep in mind on the money side of it. But this thing is beautiful, dude, and I can't wait to hear about it. So let me just kind of hand it off to you and tell us the story of this beauty, man.
Well, this starts back in 2010 when I purchased it. I lived up in Pennsylvania and I always wanted a Corvette, and kind of grew up kind of poor and couldn't afford one, but as luck had it, you know, I was able to save up some money. And after I came back from a deployment in Iraq, because I was in the military, I happened to find this car about 15 miles from me, and it was all white. It was an all white car, and so I ended up purchasing it and completely did a frame-off restoration on it by myself, with the exception of the body and the paint. And it was originally a hardtop car, and I made it a convertible. So they came from the factory, hardtop only, convertible only, and then both convertible and hardtop.
Was the hardtop a removable? Because I'm not super familiar, even though this is my favorite Corvette. I guess this is probably a slight on myself.
No, yeah, they're removable. You got two latches right there that holds the convertible top down, and then you have some holes in the deck lid that screws in. So
okay.
But you know, these cars nowadays, most people drive them when the weather's nice.
Mm-hmm.
They're not everyday drivers usually. If you happen to get caught in the rain or something, that's when I like to put up the convertible top instead of having the hard top. So, but I do have the hard top for it.
Oh, nice.
So, and the reason I picked this car was I liked 58 through 61s. 58 was the first year of the dual headlights, and I like that model of the dual headlights. And 58's got a unique hood, and it's got trunk spears on it. And this is a 59, and 59 and 60's almost identical, and then 61's a little bit different with the grille and stuff. But it happened to be, like I said, about 15 miles or so from my house, and it was an all white car. And I took it down. It took about 4 years to restore it, and I never restored a car before. So I took plenty of photos, because my memory's not as good as it once was. And you think, oh, I'll remember how that goes, but and I'm glad I did.
I'll definitely be showing some of your photos in this portion here.
So when I painted it, it's a Viper Red is actually the color of this car. It's from a 92 to a 2000. I've painted it Viper Red, and then a 1960 Ermine White for the Coes. So that is a correct paint color for the 1960. But it's a Viper Red.
So how close is this white to the original color? Is this the original color, or?
No, like I said, it was I forget the my mind goes blank for that color of white. It was a duller white though. So this is a little bit brighter white.
Okay.
And I didn't want to make it too bright and take away from the red. So I think it turned out pretty nice. So.
Some people would probably, you know, slight you for this, honestly, but it's like, I love the fact that you did it in the color you wanted it in. Like, instead of trying to go back for like a true blue, like, has to be factory spec white car.
Well,
and
a car's only original once, right? No matter what.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as you change the spark plugs, it's not original.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the original motor or transmission. I do have a 58 block 283. that I built for this, and it's got a Muncie 4-speed transmission. So it doesn't have the T10 transmission, but it does have the correct block for 58. A 58 block. So 4-barrel carburetor. So I built it for me, you know, and so purists sometimes will say, well, that's wrong, and I agree, yeah, and but it's you know, I built it the way I wanted to build it. Look pretty much original, but you know, have a little bit of modern stuff with it.
I mean, most people that see this car, I know I saw you at a car show here just a few days ago, or a few weeks ago, I guess now at this point, but over at the church.
Yeah.
I know I saw you there with another guy's car, and until you started pointing things out to me, I mean, it's just looking at it, like the things you mentioned, like the spears in the back, and that guy I think had a icebox hood or something like that.
Yeah, louver hood.
Yeah, louver hood, however y'all say that. I'm not sure which is which. I know that I think on the Camaros,
some people call it a washboard hood.
Washboard. Okay, that's what you said then, I think. And but you know, looking at the two cars, I'm like, you know, yours has definitely went through the restoration, where his probably had a few things it needed, but I mean, his was extremely nice too, in my opinion. But the red on white is the thing that sticks out that both of y'all's cars were.
Yeah.
And I know for me, I'm going to show my age here as a young gun. It's like, I think Cars, like the movie Cars, like the animated movie, like when Lightning McQueen goes classic. And this is the color scheme. It's Little Red Corvette, right? And I think there's a song about that too, if I'm not mistaken. Little Red Corvette.
There's a song about Corvette, Little Red Corvette. I'm more old school. I mean, I don't know why I am, but I like older things. I like antiques and stuff. And I guess the reason is when you go to a car show, you see modern things, and you know, it's easier to get modern things than older things, in my opinion. And the nice thing about this, when I take a car to a car show, there's two things that really make me happy. Number one is usually older people will come up and they have memories. It brings back fond memories that they had. So, you know, when they were young and they said, oh, I had a car, but I got married, I had to sell it, or my buddy had a car, and the enjoyment that we had in that car. And the other thing that really makes me happy is I was at a cruise-in one time, and a young lady, probably 10, 12 years old, and her mom came up and was looking at the car, and the young lady was really interested in it. And I said, do you want to sit in it? And she goes, really? I said, yeah. So I let her sit in it, and she's, you know, got her hands on her lap and stuff. And I said, well, grab the steering wheel. And she goes, are you sure? And I go, yeah. And so she grabbed it. Now I said, move it like you stole it. And she just got this big smile on her face, and her mom's taking photos, you know. And, you know, 30 years from now or 20 years from now, hopefully they come across that photo and they smile. That's what, you know, it's all about making memories and reliving memories.
Yeah, and on my side for that, I really hope, I love that you do that. And I want to sit in it too, man. Like, I want to sit in it too, but you know, I'm a little bit more a gearhead, so I've been around them and I'm in them and out of them, but I always ask for most people, but it's what I would hope in that scenario there too, I hope that girl looks back at that picture and she's like, I want a little red Corvette. You know, I want a little red Corvette someday, and she goes and gets her one, you know, because see, that's what I like to push for, is like continue that car culture. And that's the positive way to do it. You know? Yeah,
absolutely.
Simplest thing can be that. That nugget in her brain.
Yeah. Like I said, I put it all together with the exception of the body and paint. I had somebody rebuild the motor and transmission and rear end, but I completely disassembled it and reassembled it. With the exception, my brother-in-law's brother put the convertible top on, and I had the seats sent out to Corvette Central and had them redone. And a gentleman up in Pennsylvania named Jeff did the body. Then another gentleman named Dan painted the car, who used to work for Roger Penske for 21 years before Roger moved down south. So did a fine job. I mean, I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah, and, this thing is beautiful, man.
Yeah, the car since restoration, I think 2013 is when I finished. It's only got like 37, 67 miles on it. So
37.
yeah, so what is that,
66.
10 years? So, you know, about 370 miles a year is what I put on it, give or take.
So where all have you taken it in that 10 years? Because like I'm curious.
Well, I started up in Pennsylvania, and then I drove it to Ohio, and I left it at my mother's for about a year or so. I was a contractor overseas for a little bit, and then when I moved down here, I drove it down here along with my stepdaughter. So she drives it. She drives a 4-speed. Matter of fact, she's the owner of a 67 coupe, 327, 350 horse Corvette.
Which we'll have her on here, you know, in the future. So,
but she can drive it. It's a 4-speed. So yeah, so that's where the car was at originally, up in Pennsylvania. Then we brought it down here, and
I can imagine I'm imagining right now your mom, when it was left with her, she's just whipping around, fishtailing it sideways.
No.
While you're out of town.
I had to just about hog tire to get her in one day to drive, you know, and so we're going, and what was kind of funny, where I grew up at, there's a long straight stretch where you can't, you know, just straight, you know, it's prairie and whatnot, and you can see any policemen or law enforcement. So I was doing about 100 miles an hour in there with her, and her hair's flying and everything, and and you know what went through my mind? It's like, wait a second, 100 miles an hour? I know the guy that put this front end together, and that was me. So, so after that, I slowed down a little bit, you know. But no, the car's drives fine. It's probably one of the straightest driving cars I ever drove. I mean, it just drives really nice. And so
it's all those old mechanical linkages. They hold up pretty sturdy.
yeah, you know, it's simple. I like simple things. You know, it doesn't have any really comforts in the car. No air conditioning. You know, it's got a radio and defroster and heater, but other than that, not a whole lot. So
we had the roof off.
It got the roof. That's exactly
you've
right.
always got AC.
Yeah. So, but the car is, like I said, 283 stock. It does have 202 heads on it. That so those heads are a little high performance. And then I painted the inside red, and that's supposed to be flat black, and but I painted the way I wanted it to, you know.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's pretty much stock looking. The trunk and stuff looks as good as the outside of the car. The plywood that covers the spare tire, we shot it with some called reface or slick sand, sanded it all down, and shot it, and it's beautiful. I mean, and then the back of it is where they usually put a piece of cardboard, and I went and got a real small piece of I don't know, paneling or something like that, and painted that, and it's stiff, and it just looks nice. It does. So it's a nice looking car. But
I love that you put your custom touches on it, man. Like, I don't want that to sound short or be lost, because like when I mentioned it earlier, it's like going with the red. Like I mean, this for me, as a guy who loves them but doesn't know all the intricate details, I'm like, I would say this looks original to me, and it looks great. Even those little subtle touches, you know, and this might be one of those things that you really have to be a Corvette guy to notice those little touches, like your engine bay needing to be black. Me personally, I'm like, go with what floats your boat, and also go with the things that, honestly, if it looks better, it looks better. Like,
well, that's, you know, I made it more modern. I mean, you got to realize the first Corvette was hand laid in 1953. Yeah. You know, fiberglass, and all the Corvettes ever made have been fiberglass or carbon material, you know, newer cars, but there's never been a steel car made of Corvette that I know of. So, you know, and my body man was very, he said, we're going to make this car nice. So he started at the front, and everything that he did, he thought about the airflow. So, you know, as the air comes up, he didn't want anything to block it, i.e., you know, the doors right here, you know, shouldn't stick out. It should flow over.
Smooth.
Yeah, because, you know, the air is full of debris and stuff, and eventually it will wear. And so we made the car better than what it did coming back from the factory. The trim, there's some things that you know, that he pointed out, and now when I look at a you know, a 58 through 61 or 2, my eyes automatically go to certain things, and I was like, yep, that's done right, or maybe that's from the factory, or maybe he could have done a little bit better there, you know. And for example, my instrument cluster is a two-piece cluster originally, and every Corvette I ever seen, with the exception of probably two of C, 58 through 62, usually they'll have a gap on one side of the other where they meet where the speedometer is. And I didn't like that, so I filled out all that in and I made it one piece. So it looks really smooth, and so, you know, like I said, I did my little touches on it. Yeah.
Those small details.
Yeah.
They go. Those small details will take you a mile, like miles, though. You know.
Well, you know, I built this car. Like I said, it took about 4 years to build, and I had my wife, unfortunately, became ill and succumbed to her illness. You know, I didn't build the car to resell. You know, I built it for me to enjoy, and when I'm done with it, I'll pass it down to my stepdaughter, and whatever she does with it, then that's up to her. You know,
Right.
and
At that point, you're probably not around, though, to be like, oh my God.
yeah. But she'll drive it, and she can drive it, and I feel totally comfortable with her driving it, and so she started driving it when she was, I guess probably around 20 years old, so she's 25 now.
Okay.
So, yeah. Matter of fact, her first car was a manual, so she enjoys manuals.
I actually love the fact that you taught your stepdaughter, how to drive a manual too, or at least she knows. I don't know if you taught her or not, but at least she knows, because I'm like, there's a lot of people these days, it's like, if you got a manual car, anti-theft device.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's a good thing, but like...
yeah, exactly.
But, you know, it's like, it's pretty depressing that we went from everybody knows how to drive a manual to nobody knows how to drive a manual.
Right. And I got a few cars, and she can drive them all. So, yeah, it doesn't matter if they're manual or automatic. She can drive them all. Matter of fact, I have one vehicle that's a 3-speed on the column, and she can drive it too. So.
And see, that's impressive there to me, because I have just, it's a desire of mine, a goal of mine, to one day drive a column shift car. I've never done it.
Yeah.
And I know how to drive manuals very well.
Yeah.
But I'm like, someone's asked me at one point to help them out with one of those auctions, one of those big auctions. Someone asked me to help them one day, and they were like, can you drive a manual? And I said, yes. And they said, can you drive a column shift manual? And I was like, I don't know.
Well, you'll probably just stay in first gear, you know, driving it in the auction. But
yeah, it's just the idea, though, of like, I'd never done it, so I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, there's some things that my daughter had to call me up on when she was driving one time. She goes, how do you make the lights brighter? You know, I was like, well, she goes, I'm trying on the steering column. I said, you got to use your left foot, you know,
Look
so
for
the
the
dimmer. And then, like I said, one of our vehicles, or actually two of them, we got foot starters. So, you know, you got to use a foot starter to start that. Yeah. So, So, but other than that, the paint, like I said, is a Viper Red. It's pretty much stock looking. I tried to keep it as much original, somewhat looking as I could, with a little bit of touches. I lived up in Pennsylvania. I went down to Corvette of Carlisle one year, and the guy had a beautiful black, we'll say a 1959 or 60.
Okay.
And I mean, it was just beautiful. And on the right fender, it had a chip came up.
Ooh.
It lifted the paint. And I said, what happened there? And he says, I didn't even have the car 500 miles after I had it done, and I was driving, and I picked up a rock, and it popped the paint. It came up because that fiberglass is fairly thin,
so it
right
hit
there.
under the fender?
Hit under the fender, popped the paint, and so when he said that, I ended up putting a bed liner all up underneath this car to kind of reinforce it and to make it a little thicker. So hopefully I'll never encounter that issue.
Yeah, that's smart there.
It's just like taking a piece of paper and taking your thumb and hitting a piece of paper, it just pops it, yeah.
Right.
So, but, that's really about it of the car. It's a good, dependable driving car. It's it'll run well. It drives well, drives straight. I have no complaints about the car.
Well, with you saying that, then I want to ask you one more question.
Okay.
All right, before we move forward here, how dependable is it? Would you trust this driving to Auburn, or would you trust this driving to LS Fest?
Oh, I drive it out to California. I mean, the only issue that
and we're in Alabama, by the way, North Alabama. I'm not
yeah.
going to say where exactly,
Yeah.
but North Alabama. So
The only issue that I have with this car is when you go to car shows and it's hot during the summer and you're stopping and going, stopping and going. It doesn't have an electric fan on it or anything like that. So
Yep.
the gas will want to start to probably boil, and you can start to hear it bog down.
vapor lock.
Yeah, vapor lock. You know the deal, because
Yep.
it doesn't have electric boost pump on it or fuel pump. It's a mechanical driven.
Mm-hmm.
So long as you're moving, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem driving this car, like I said, to California. I mean, honestly, I put the car together. I know what the car is like. And the person who built the motor and transmissions is fantastic. I've never had any issues, with the exception of it, if you want to say, getting a little vapor locked. Yeah.
I love to hear that, man. But since I asked that question, how about we get into hearing this thing run?
All right, sure.
Well, there you have it. Tim Wolshire and his 1959 Chevrolet Corvette. Man, this thing is beautiful. I don't care what anyone says. The car owners themselves are both take the most pride in their car, and they're also their biggest critics. Like, you may think there's a few things that are whatever, anything like that, which I know you didn't say that. I'm just making the
There's always
assumption.
stuff. Yeah,
There's
yeah.
always stuff,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like, when it's someone like me that sees it, I'm like, dude, this thing is spectacular. I love it. Like I say, being just a C1, I would have loved it anyways. Like, I've seen these things dilapidated, barely running, and I still am like, that is the coolest car.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You know?
Yeah.
But like, this thing is just beautiful. I love, like I say, I mentioned it multiple times. I love that you put your touches on it. Like the bed liner, wonderful idea. Hopefully someone sees this that has a C1 maybe one day, and they'll be like, that was a good idea.
Yeah.
You know, something like that. Like, I just love it. I love everything about it. And you know, I really want to get your last thoughts on this, and anything you might want to tell anyone that may be watching out there.
Well, first of all, you know, if you have dreams, follow your dreams. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we kind of didn't have a whole lot of money when I was young, and I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and my friends had 56 Chevys and 57 Chevys and whatnot, and I could never afford one till later in life. And so, you know, you might not be able to do it now, but, you know, think about it, and there's always a future. So, you know, and pass the torch. You know, I enjoy these car shows. I enjoy talking to people. And my daughter usually tags along with me some. Not always, but she's in medical school right now, so she's preoccupied. But people got to know her around the area within probably 30, 40 miles around here. And so if you ever want to do something, and it doesn't matter, another thing that I really like, when I go to car shows or cruise-ins, when a person has a vehicle there and they're so proud of it, it doesn't matter what that vehicle looks like. That's their vehicles, right? Or their vehicle. And I like hearing their story about it.
Yeah.
I like having them talking, you know, be very excited about what they've done to the car and stuff, or truck, you know. So that's the part I like about it. It's not for me to show my vehicle. You know, I get in mine and I drive it from here to there in the evening or whatnot. That's my enjoyment. You know,
if you haven't noticed how I disappear at car shows from my car, it's like I park my car and it's like I'm gone. Like,
yeah, I am too. You know, and that's a, you know, with a problem with me. You know, I got to know so many people. I got to go and say hi to them. You know, and then people come up to my car and nobody's around the car. You know, and so I have a hard time sitting still. You know, but I enjoy answering questions and stuff, and that's what I enjoy is going to cruise-ins, car shows. And making people happy and hear their stories, you know.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier, the young lady who sat in the car, just you know, hopefully 20, 30 years from now, you know, she'll go through that and just smile from ear to ear.
That's what it's all about, man.
That's what it's all about. So,
yep.
Some people think this is a torch red. It is very close to a torch red, but once again, it's a Viper red from '92 to 2000. The white is ermine, if I pronounce that right, 1960, ermine white. And the original color of the car was a snowcrest white, all snowcrest.
Okay, so you caught that back there.
Yeah,
all
the
right.
memory came back to me a little bit there. So snowcrest white, it was all white at that time.
I got you, man. Well, hey, thanks for having me out here and taking the time to do this with me.
Oh,
like,
it's a pleasure.
I'm hoping
you know?
somebody like sees this and just loves your car as much as I do. This thing is beautiful.
Yeah.
I know your daughter's gonna have to see this now.
Oh,
and
she will.
Gonna love it,
She will. And once again, this couldn't have been done without by my body man. We'll go by first name Jeff up in Pennsylvania. Matter of fact, he's going to paint a 1967 Corvette that I took up to him 2 months ago this weekend. So he's working for on a project there for me.
If you didn't know, he is a Corvette guy.
And then my painter Dan, you know, he did a fantastic job on both those. So kudos to those two gentlemen.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me, man.
You're welcome. You're
Let's
welcome.
get on
Thanks
out
for
of here.
having me. Thank you. Thank you.
And with that, we'll see you in the next one. Peace.
I'll see you at the next car show, okay?
There you have it, folks. Be sure you like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.